board to order. Our first thing is if we could all stand. And if you're so led, please join us in the invocation and the pledge. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'll remain standing for a moment of silence in memory of Mary Ann Myers. Ms. Myers was employed by the district as a bus driver and bus attendant in the Clewiston Transportation Department from 1991 through 2009. Thank you.
tonight under recognitions, we have on the agenda Bridgie Lott, Larisha Jackson, and Ebony Smith, CMS parents. Anyone here?
I'm here, but Larisha just got off work and Ebony is on her way, but I'll start. There was an incident.
I want to let you know, our protocol is that all of our speakers have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay.
We want to refrain from personal attacks, anything like that, I'm going to gavel you down on.
Okay.
But I want to give you the 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, the first incident happened in August where my daughter was, by a parent, made to return to the cafeteria at Clewiston Middle School and was threatened for the parent to fight her. Nothing happened. There was another incident on October the 25th where she was punched in the face by a boy. She pushed the boy and was put in school suspension. After being punched in the face and told that she needs to make better decisions, I'm not sure what decision she made to be punched in the face by a boy, but she was punished for that. Then on November the 14th, I received a call that there was a TikTok video or some kind of video that was made. And she was suspended from school for that video, but the video wasn't made on school grounds. And they suspended her and the other girls for misuse of computer technology. But in the handbook, there is no policy that says that they can't make a video off campus. The harassment and bullying policy says that, but they weren't suspended for harassment or bullying. They said that it wasn't harassment, it wasn't bullying because it was the first time that it happened, that the situation happened. I don't think that what they did was right, but I don't think that they should have been in school suspension, out of school suspension, kicked off the cheer team, kicked off of the basketball team for a video, and the little girl made a video also, but she deleted her video. We were told, well, you didn't save the video and bring it to the school. Who saves a child's video and takes it to a school when the little girl didn't make the video at school? They know that she made a video, but it's like, since she cried about their video, they're punished and she's not. And she was able to, they were put in in-school suspension. She went into in-school suspension. Administration was called. They were told that she went in for an ID. The in-school suspension, whoever saw that she already had an ID, sent her out. But she's not in trouble because they sent her there. But did she lie to the teacher to get there to antagonize the kids? And they told me that they punished them. Nothing happened at school. And she said, what if something would have happened at school? But you can what if a lot of situations. That doesn't mean that it happened, it doesn't mean it's gonna happen. But what if she had went in school suspension and a fight had started? So she's not punished for that, but they're punished off of what if. So I don't understand how they punish them for something that didn't happen at school, and then they're applying the bullying and harassment policy for misuse of, they do have I did read the policy where they could have suspended them for bullying or harassment, but that's not what they were suspended for. So how do you apply that policy if you didn't suspend them for that? Anybody have something?
Council, do students, are they governed by all policies of the district at any given time?
Yes, the policy manual applies, you know, in addition to the things that are specified in the student handbook.
So even though it's not in their policy, they can still suspend them?
There's no mention of a number of crimes and offenses in the student handbook. You know what I mean?
No. Because they have they have them listed. So how do you arrest me for or charge me with theft if it wasn't theft, or oh, she could have stole something or whatever?
I'm not following the line of reasoning here. I mean, you can do things wrong besides what's listed in the student handbook. There are other things in the policy manual, there are other things in Florida statutes, you know, that are securities fraud is not mentioned in the student handbook, but you know, you could still get in trouble for doing it at school, and the cyberbullying and all of that stuff, you know, that can happen off campus. But this isn't a forum where we, you know, debate these kind of issues.
But they were for misuse of cellular devices or whatever the policy said, technology misuse.
So ma'am, you have met your 3-minute time to speak. It is not protocol. The school board does not have the authority to request administration overturn their ruling, and so I just wanted to thank you for coming and sharing your concerns. And if the other people on the agenda are planning to come tonight, I'll make a time for them to express their concerns. But thank you for coming.
Do this next,
Yes.
since it comes under citizens' comment on agenda items.
The next thing on the agenda is the citizen comment on agenda items. I have a public comment card from Richard West.
Good evening. I'm Richard West, bus driver and presently president of HESPA. While I'm here tonight, y'all have a paper there from the Take on Tallahassee. The governor has come up with this elaborate educational funding that he thinks is the greatest thing in the world, but it limits you all on your spending. He's going to tell you how to spend it. And we feel that's wrong. Who knows better on spending our money than the board? So FEA is calling for a $2.4 billion increase for public education. It's a down payment toward correcting and disinvestment that the state has done. On January 13th, we are going to rally in Tallahassee. There'll be thousands of teachers, educators, staff professionals who will gather at the Civic Center in Tallahassee on the 13th at 1:30. We're going to walk about a half a mile to the old Capitol building. As of last night on the president's phone call, we have 16,000 teachers, staff, educators, and public that has commented to attend. Also attending will be the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, and he will be speaking. We have the presidents from the American Federation of Teachers, the National Education Association, and the AFL-CIO. We also have visitors coming from West Virginia and Oklahoma. We understand we can't do what they did, but they're coming to support what we are trying to do, to wake the governor up, to wake the cabinet up, and let them know how we feel and what we want. The reason we're doing this on the 13th, the legislative starts their session on the 14th, and they will all be there in the House on that Monday. So again, it's just a FYI, we're not asking for any support other than you're saying good luck to us. There will be some educational staff that's going to be requesting time off because it is a work day. So we will ask that you kind of see your way to accepting that. Other than that, like I said, we're not asking for donations or anything. We have charter buses that's set up. That's it.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
how many youth from our area will be going?
That I'm not sure. I don't know what the teachers have going. There's very few of the support staff going. They just, people can't afford to take time off.
Can I give it to the E for this? Can bring me elsewhere.
Political activities are,
Yeah.
can't do that.
What I'm asking is, when you said that the staff will be asking for time off, it's gonna have to be personal
Personal
leave?
time.
Okay,
Yes. We assumed that to start with.
okay.
Madam Chair, Mr. Leddy, are we going to have enough subs to cover if we have some?
That's gonna be what we have to deal with. And there is a formula, and I meet with Mrs. Stitt tomorrow morning anyway, and we'll talk about this, because it starts getting tough when you have more than 10% of the staff out. And so we might have to look at that, but that would be 50-some teachers, and I don't know how many she has planned going.
Madam Chairman. If, in that event, Mr. Pillay, would it be, so I'm assuming you guys will be back on Tuesday?
Yes.
So that means that's 2 days that those teachers would be taking off.
No, just one day.
So you'll be back Monday night, so they can
Yes.
work Tuesday?
They will be at work Tuesday.
Okay, that's what I mean, it's a Monday, so would it be feasible to, if we have more than 50, if we have 70 or 100 plus teachers, would it be feasible to use that as just cancel it, the school for the day and use makeup day somewhere? So that we don't end up having a shortage on subs.
Here, it's feasible, but because it's a political activity, it's not an emergency, it's not, for instance, when Mr. Kleiner passed away as a school board member, we called half a day. Because it's a political activity, might be in a gray area of calling school, okay? Because in effect, there could be, I'm gonna say this, and I'm not saying it's true, but somebody could say that's an organized strike. Okay, and that's not what, we don't wanna go down that road, okay?
Well,
So, yeah, but if we have that, then it's just gonna be up to us to rely on HCEA to do the right thing and understand that we're here to educate children, first and foremost, and then this is how we debate going about getting it.
Right, well, that's what, yeah, I understand, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
event we had
I
200
get it.
teachers say, no, we're going,
Yeah, well, that would be.
you know, then what do we do? We're kind of up the creek
That would be
without a
kind
paddle
of,
here.
we're not gonna go down that road, I don't think that's gonna be, but if.
Yeah,
I would hate to say that I would call school because of a political activity.
well, no, I wouldn't word it like that, I'd say because, we know we're gonna be short 200 teachers on this day. We're not
Right,
gonna be
but
able to educate the
the
children.
shortage is because they were participating in a political
Because they're taking a
activity.
personal day.
Pardon?
Because they're taking a personal day, what they do on that day is their problem, that's their deal.
Except it's on a Monday and there's contract language that deals with that.
Okay.
You know, I think we're.
I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, and it's what ifs. I don't think we're gonna have, our people, both at HESPA and HCA, are professional enough that they'll understand the issues.
Sure. I'm just trying to make sure we don't have kids sitting in the classroom with anybody we could find, just for whatever, you know, because.
Split
That's all.
classes and.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to cram 60 kids in a classroom because we were short, so that's all I'm after.
Thank you, Mr. West.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman.
You recognize?
I think that that's something we should support, even though we can't allow everyone to leave, because I'm not happy with Tallahassee's treatment of the teachers and the amount of money that they have available for them, and they just don't seem to care as much about that. And it's critical. I mean, we need it, we need help, and I think that it would be good for them to have to find out that how serious we think it is in Florida. You know, we're an outstanding state. We've got tremendous amounts of support from all kinds of people, and Tallahassee needs to step up and think about it.
Certainly. Let's move forward. As a point of privilege, I want to put the consent agenda ahead of the action item votes. If there is going to be any discussion on any of the items on the consent agenda, let's pull them, and it would be appropriate protocol to list them as action items, individual action items. That's something I learned in my chairmanship academy.
Yeah, that's always been the case. You can always pull any item off the consent agenda for an individual vote. But as we go to the consent agenda, I would like to pull item 4C.
Lila. This is for
On the consent agenda, item C,
C.
wants to pull from the agenda.
We'll see.
Are there any other items that anyone from the board wants to discuss, so we can move those to an action item?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm just kind of curious, financial statements, you know, I'm just kind of curious, so there's some big numbers again in here.
Okay,
why.
let's move, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Baskin. Let's move that to an action item on the financial statement, so let's move that to action item D. And I would like to move the item K, the internal funds account audit, to action item, would that be E? Action item E. All right, so what we have on the consent agenda, do we have a recommendation
So moved.
from the recommendation from the superintendent?
Okay, yes, I move the approval of the consent agenda.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The vote passes unanimously for the consent agenda. On action items, new personnel allocation request. Do I have a recommendation from the superintendent?
Recommend approval of the new personnel allocation request.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? It, vote passes unanimously.
Madam Chair,
You recognize?
I'll move approval of the school improvement plans, the school advisory council rosters, and the schedule of meetings for LaBelle High School, LaBelle Middle School, LaBelle Elementary School, Country Oaks Elementary School, and Up the Grove Elementary School. Just as a reminder, the board has determined that instead of the presentations from each school, we would have the presentation from those schools that are under assistance. So the one presentation we have will be Clewiston Middle at our next meeting.
Do we have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Action item C is bids for a 2019 Dodge Caravan SXT paid for by Federal Programs Department. Do I have a recommendation from the superintendent?
Recommend approval of the bid
Do I have a
for the purchase of this vehicle.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. That's down to financial statements. Do I have a recommendation to approve?
Madam Chair, I recommend approval of the financial statement and would ask it, well, at this time, if Ms. McCarty would like to address this, that she be allowed to do so.
Would that be in discussion? Do you want a motion in a
be.
second? Can I get,
Okay, we could move it under board member discussion, okay?
you want to move the financial statements to board member
No,
business?
no, do your
Okay.
action, and then we can discuss this later under the board member business.
Do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
A second? Any discussion?
I'm confused. Can you, what was it? We're gonna move this to board member business now?
Okay, no, it's two different things, okay? What we're asking is that you go ahead and approve this,
Uh-huh.
and then under board member business, if Ms. McCarty could come speak to it.
Yes.
You may want to move Ms. McCarty up before you vote. I don't know, that's your call.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it really doesn't make sense to approve something and then discuss it later. I think we need to kind of discuss it before we
Okay.
vote on it. I'm just,
That makes sense.
I don't know if anybody else feels that way.
Do you have particular concerns?
There's just some, let's see here, let me find it. My page quit flipping around.
We can move that.
Yeah, when you've got 1,308% increase, kind of, there's some big increases again. So I'm just kind of curious about some of these large increases of what's our reasonings behind some of these?
Okay. First of all, the purpose, I'll go into a little background, since you're gonna let me speak, thank you. The purpose of these monthly financial reports is obviously to determine compliance with the budget, and to make sure that we have cash and funds available to operate per the board policy. And as you are expressing right now to discuss any of the financial conditions and concerns. The only thing that I would have brought out today, and I appreciate that you will ask specific questions, this particular period, this particular report is for the month of November, and everything obviously still appears to be on target and within budget where we would expect right now, except that the revenues and the cash flow was a little bit lower than expected for the month of November. This doesn't bother me one bit because I'm preparing this in December, and on December 2nd, I received a $5 million distribution, and then today I received a $3 million distribution. The $1.5 million I expected in November, those would be our taxes. It was just we received it a little bit late. So I'm back to comfortable with where we are with the cash flow and where we are for the November financial statements. For the specific type of questions, the type of things you ask, I will try to answer, but for the most part, a lot of these, I will have to go back and specifically research the line items. That takes time. Usually, I can get you an answer back in about 24 hours. So that's my big picture. Now, back to you were looking at, I think, page 2, where you see, what you're looking at is the percent versus fiscal year 2019, correct?
Correct.
Because when you look down the percent spent year to date, and that's one of the blue columns, you'll see that the only one that really bothered me is the 220%. That's greater than budget. And that is due to, I think we talked about this last time, that is still due to best and brightest, I think, payments that were made out.
Okay.
In the month of January, I expect to come back to you, the board, with that adjustment along with other adjustments. We received another grant. So some of these that are over budget right now are due to grants. So that's specific to the percent spent for this year. You're looking at a low dollar budget. Is that which one are you looking at? The coordinator of federal programs? I think that's
Yes.
correct. It's 130, that is specific to a contract, something for Brilliance, Footsteps for Brilliance. Footsteps for Brilliance is a $30,000 grant, or $30,000 contract. The
Mhm.
contract was already paid, so it was paid this past 2 months.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, it wasn't paid this year, that last time, ergo, that's gonna be a huge increase.
That's why it's a huge increase, okay. Mm.
And I
Yeah.
can't believe I remember Footsteps
You
to
beat me
Brilliance,
to
thank
the
you.
punch on the other one. I didn't get that far yet in my questioning, so.
So anyway, but when it comes to the more details, first of all, you're always welcome to question me in advance. But even here, she's recording these things and my staff is watching, all the finance staff enjoys watching this. And they are probably taking notes or delving into it now if there's any specific questions that you have along the way.
Okay.
Mr. Carney, on our first page of our monthly financial report, how much effort would it take to put year-to-date totals? Like, so we can tell where we were at just by this one glance, like in July up at this time last year.
Oh, so where it says, so you want year-to-date last year?
I think that would,
Okay.
just so we're seeing where we're on track spending as compared to last year.
That's a great idea, because I'm looking at that. That's how come I caught that we were behind where I expected to be for the revenues. But let me do that, let me do it as of last year, on that very first page, because you want a first glance. The other thing that we had also talked about that I believe will be on, I don't know where I was gonna put that, but just along the way, we had discussed cost per school. Wasn't it gonna go on this?
Mhm.
So right now where we've got, for example, I'll pick on LaBelle Middle School, 1,508,618 versus the 1,615,000. I was gonna put the number of students last year, this year.
Mhm.
I'm still working that out, but I thought that would be a really good comparison. And that is how much was spent per student. I don't know whether or not if you all like that, again, it's a little bit of effort for me, but I think
Right.
that in the end, we wanna see what you all wanna see.
Well, it's definitely more detailed, for sure. I like that.
All right, that's the plan for the monthly financial report. All we can do is make it better for y'all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McCarty. Is there any further discussion by the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Right, I need clarification. In the past, we have done the financial affairs as consent. There's no problem if you want us to move it under board member business. So that when you approved it, it used to be in mass with the consent agenda. If you would like, we could put it under board member business for future meetings.
Instead of having to pull it each time.
Yeah, because that's usually the one thing that the board
It's full.
asks about.
Makes sense.
Or an action item.
Yeah, could it be an action item?
Yeah,
Like
that's what it
under-
is right
yeah,
now.
Instead of board member business.
Or we can do it under action item, that's fine, just
In the
if
past.
that would work better for the,
In the past, I think where the change was when we went to board docs. Because it was always listed under financial affairs, but it was just for informational purposes. The board never approved it. If you look in the minutes, it's always stated that there's just provided to the board, and then when we moved to board docs, I just kind of put it there, which maybe has
But-
been a confusion.
but with it being under the consent agenda, the board did approve it when they
Yeah.
approved the consent agenda.
Right.
So it's just a way of doing it, a different way of looking at it.
Yeah. Okay.
So you don't feel it requires
It never
a
was.
board approval?
It was never board approved before. It was provided for informational purposes. It changed when we went to board docs, the way it was listed on the agenda. If you notice in the past, it was never on the agenda. It would be listed under the itemized section for financial affairs, but we don't have that any longer.
Right.
And there it stated it was informational purposes.
Okay.
All right, so it doesn't even require, all right. Well, it passed unanimously, even though it did not require approval.
They're legal.
We're super
Well,
legal
touch and go
here.
for a minute.
And then what about the internal funds account? Is that a one that requires the
Yes.
audit? All right.
Yes.
The item for action E is the internal funds account audit. And is there any, well, actually, do I have a recommendation by the superintendent to approve?
Yes. would be to approve the audit and the findings in our response. And then Ms. Riccardi is here.
All right. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's discuss.
May I chime in?
Yes.
So why don't I give a little brief introduction since I have read this audit. For the internal funds audit, Clifton Larson Allens reported that the financial statements present fairly the condition of these internal funds. Page 6 and 7 of the report show by school and by program receipts and disbursements. So those are probably the easiest pages to pick up on. Probably interestingly, total assets decreased $106,000 from the prior year, still leaving the funds with $832,000 in financial assets for the 12 school accounts. I did do a comparison for the schools. I presented that to them that showed the comparison over the past 4 years. But again, a decrease of $106,000, not a problem. Everybody is still in good shape, and that's what the report shows. The funds, the school districts, and the principals and their bookkeepers and staff successfully dealt with $1.6 million in revenue and $1.7 million in disbursements. There were 4 findings by the auditors that we have discussed, that I've presented and I've discussed with the principals. Number 1 is timeliness of receipts. This was probably the most widespread of violations. Timeliness of receipts means that they are required to, when they get something, they have to turn it in. When a fundraiser gets money, they need to turn it in with 1 day, and the bookkeeper needs to turn it in with 5. There were multiple violations, but they were throughout the year, and there were so many transactions, again, going back to the $1.6 million worth of transactions and revenues, that it is possible that they missed it by a day, they missed it by a week. I know in one case, they actually had a check that got lost on somebody's desk, whatever, and it was almost a month that they lost it. So that happens, they recognized it, we all recognized it, that it needs to be something monitored. That was number 1. Number 2, proprietary disbursements. When you see that, that to me stuck out like a sore thumb. But what that really says is that some expenditures were not eligible for internal funds. When I looked at the list, it was so minor, it was hardly worth mentioning. These included, number 1, paying an elevator registration. The school district needed an elevator registration, didn't think to put it through as the regular general fund, they paid it out of a school account. We have since reimbursed them. That was that's what they mean by by propriety of disbursements.
Ms. Riccardi, what
Yes.
school do we have that has an elevator?
Lucy.
LaBelle Middle School.
In the band room, I don't know who it was.
I'm not sure which
In the
school it was,
band
I'm sorry, I didn't
area,
write it.
There's an elevator to move equipment up to the
Okay.
stage and down.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't take that note.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking, wow,
Yeah,
I didn't see this in the
yeah.
plan yet.
Buying planning books and a mailing permit fee. Again, these were all told for the, again, going back to the $1.7 million of expenditures, this was $500. So, and we've made the correction, we've reimbursed them from the regular accounts. They were still good expenses, just they shouldn't have been made from the internal funds. Documentation was number 3, problem number 3. That has been a repeat item where they're not necessarily doing the best job of keeping the documents, receipts, reports, invoices, etc., with their books that go to the auditors. So it's not that they didn't accept them, they just may have put them in another place and the auditors didn't get them. Finally, there's fundraising reports. Fundraising reports need to be kept with the internal accounts, with their documentation, and they need to be approved in advance by the principal. So that was the 4 findings by the auditors that they said we needed to work on. 2 of them were repeats of last year. I think that was timeliness of receipts and documentations. I don't remember now. I have it here if you need me to know. But again, all principals, every one of the principals have reviewed this. They've discussed it with me. Specific problems, I talked with them individually, and this was back in July when I first found out about, it was August when I first got this notice. Overall, I think the bookkeepers, clerks, and the principals need to be applauded for doing so well. I mean, it amazes me how many transactions they go through in addition to dealing with everything. So I found it really hard to be upset with these 4 findings. Now, I'm sorry, that was I think that was all I had to talk about. Let's see, yeah, in fact, there was one that was about 12, for the deposit, it was about 12 days late, was one of the notices that they gave me. Okay, they made a mistake.
Well, I'm very concerned that the receipts, I mean, these are material weaknesses that haven't been cleared in this audit.
Findings, just findings, yeah.
Findings of material weakness that from 2018 that have carried over and the current year have not been cleared.
Well,
And so that's concerning.
concerning, yes, but in magnitude, not so much. they are aware of it, and occasionally they've slipped, and everyone, I'm hoping that, and I think we all are, I don't think you can force this to be corrected. It's got to be learned correction, and we are learning. However, I will continue to, that's a great point, and how about if on a regular basis, I send something out to the schools, reminding them to do that? I think that's where you were going with that, is perhaps I can do a little bit more enforcement and asking them on a regular basis to make sure that there's no checks or things that haven't been deposited. That would not be a bad. Is that
Oversight
kind of what you were?
compliance is, yes ma'am, oversight and compliance is very important.
All right, I got that. I will do that. I appreciate that.
Good idea.
Okay.
Is that all I can do for you on this one?
Yes, ma'am, I think so. Okay, do we have any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're through our action items.
Board action items, Madam Chair, I'd like permission to advertise proposed policy revisions, and they're listed in your agenda.
Okay, we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, and then Ms. Riccardi will come before us again. In the past, several months ago, you asked for accounting request proposals, and she has some to present to you.
Oh, phew. You're on my file.
Sit up.
Good evening. During this fiscal year, you've got a big package for me. During this fiscal year, the board members have been very resolute in their direction and their desire to find a more balanced budget than what was adopted earlier this fiscal year. In fact, the past 3 fiscal years showed a disturbing trend of deficits from 2.2 million 3 years ago to 4.3 million last year, and now 5.9 million. Thankfully, make this very clear, despite the budget deficits, the results of the past fiscal years did not demonstrate that these budgeted losses. They were in fact small surpluses each year. However, budgeting with a deficit is not the way we want to do business. It's not good planning, and the results, when the results don't coincide with the budget, you, the leadership, from the board to the superintendent, you don't have the proper information to make a determination about your future spending. The board asked us, the staff, to review the budget and to concurrently prepare an RFP to go out for budget review process to find out what's going wrong. So in between all of my other duties, I have been doing that. I'm going to start with Exhibit C in your package. In your Exhibit C, you can see what I have been doing from a budget review standpoint. I have been going to each location, that is, a location is either a school or a department. So I'm going through each location, line by line, to see what is budgeted versus what should be spent. Although this report's only partially finished, as you can tell by the first page, I've been nailing some of the bigger departments. We've already shown that just by making my corrections right now, we're going to save about $2.4 million. This includes some items being double budgeted. I know there was, I'll go into my department, but I think it was insurance. I can see where I did not budget insurance properly. If I can, if you look at I think it's called Exhibit C2. That's my department. I wanted to do my department just because I figured I don't throw anybody under the bus with that one. If you look at my department, just by making the changes that I recommend, we'd save $40,000. And we're not saving it. We're not spending it. Period. Those are things. There are 3 things budgeted within my budget that we are not spending. It appears as though twice in there was budgeted for the Rapid Solutions. Rapid Solutions is the company that partially prepares our cost report. It was in there twice. That's about a $15,000 report. There's a contract for CFO services, which please don't do that. And finally, there was the TSA. The TSA is a 403B company. They monitor our 403B. Sometime last year, I think it was May, it could have been earlier, they ceased billing us. They said that no longer are they charging us per employee for TSA. Well, it stayed in my budget. I'm sorry, no, it's not my budget, but the finance department budget. So again, that's the type of things that when you go through this budget line by line, you can find, and we've been finding, and again, I've been talking to to the superintendent throughout this. So, we'll stop right there. The biggest deal to me, while I'm working on this, is stopping that type of redundancy in the future. Our budget has the capabilities, I'm learning how to do that because I don't think anybody, it doesn't show obviously, but our budget has the capabilities to track details. That is, when I put in a line item, it should be able to say, Rapid Solutions, 15,000, TSA, 22,000. So that when, and I don't think, that's not the type of details that we want you, the board, to be looking at, but you want me to be looking at it, and you want Mr. Paletti to be looking at it. So we're looking at making it so that we will see this before they ever get double counted in the future. Anyway, this is another thing. By performing this review, I want to make sure we are not disrespecting former CFOs. I don't ever want you to think that I'm throwing any of them under the bus. They did good jobs. If they were here right now, they would be doing exactly what we're doing, trying to fix the problem. So it has blossomed. So away from my disclaimers and back to this report. You had talked about you wanted to get a professional review, basically to do, I don't want to say it's do what I'm doing, I think you want something a little bit different, but it's still going to take someone like me to delve into the numbers and find out what went wrong, what went right. If you do that, I'm still not going to stop with my review. My review to me is extremely important. I've learned so much about my budget. I will now know what I'm looking for throughout. And again, as I've done, I think since this report was prepared, I think I've finished 3 or 4 additional schools. Those schools, they have not added to the savings at all. So that has not been a saving so far. But anyway, back to the RFP discussion for the night. You can see that I presented to you 4 different options. The first one was the RFP, going out for formal RFP. Because I don't expect this cost to be more than $25,000, I actually expect it to be about $18,000 to $25,000. Going out for a formal RFP will do 2 things. Will take up a lot of time, and it's really probably not necessary. So we're kind of thinking that one's not a good idea. Option number 2 is to go out for a informal RFP, basically put it out there and see who responds without the formal advertising. Just, I would send this to people in the business and they would reply and we would get a good quote. For that, I believe I have included as exhibit A, I have a draft of that. And it was simple, that was pretty simple to assemble. So that was item number 2. Option number 3 is for us to simply use Clifton Larson Allen. Clifton Larson Allen, that's they audit your internal funds. Clifton Larson Allen recently did a RFP for, I think it was a bid, called Forward to a government agency called Forward Pinellas. And they gave me those prices, and I think I included that as exhibit E in your package. So that would be the pricing that they would range. So that's option number 3. We could simply piggyback their bid prices on that. And option number 4 is do nothing, and that is continue on as we are. Continue on as we are has the advantage of, regardless, I am still going to be continuing, looking at our budget, refining it, coming back to the board with a recommendation. So those are your 4 options. Let's see if I missed anything. I have dominated this discussion so far.
That's all right.
Which is what I do. But all I really wanted to do was, of those 4 options, how would you want me to proceed? Option number 2, I'm not even going to consider option number 1. I'm writing that one off. Option number 2, option number 3, option number 4. Those are, if y'all point me in the right direction, we will proceed.
Ms. Riccardi, when you talk about an accounting review of the budget, as you describe in your memo, how does that compare to an operational audit?
It is not an operational audit. If you are seeking an operational audit, that is, it was not. The direction that was given to me was find out what went wrong with the budget, which is a different item. I'm not saying an operational audit's a bad thing. Not at all. Operational audit, we can do that as well. But I'd have a separate RFP for that. So that is correct. From what we have discussed, this has been the direction that I have been heading, and that is either I'm going to do it, get it done by December 1st, or you're going to outsource it. That was the original discussion, the very original. Now, if this has modified over the years, I've been here 6 months. If this has modified over the last 6 months, I don't have it that way. So I did not write it up that way. An operational audit. Let's talk a little bit about
that. Was my, when I was pushing this, that was the exact terminology I used.
And I think if you did use that, and you were trying, and again, I'm only hearing that the problem is not operational, to me, the problem is the budget. Because operational means that you want to see, and let's pick on a department, if you're going to do an operational audit, typically what you will do is you will say, is the finance department performing at peak efficiency? And you'll have come in, go through and make sure we are doing everything by the book, that we have good operational procedures, that we're not inefficient. That would be an operational type audit. So if you have a and is that good? I've had them done in the past, have I recommended them in the past? Yes. I'm trying to think under what circumstances you would want that. What would you actually be wanting
I
us to
want
audit?
accounting to know that we are spending our money the way it needs to be spent.
You get a financial audit every year, though. I think that's, I'll make sure you understand, you get a financial audit that makes sure that we spend our money in accordance with the budget, in accordance with the rules and regulations of the school district. So, you know, when Claudia of the state of Florida comes in and sits in our offices, she is going through bill by bill by bill. So I think that we are already getting a financial audit. Operational audit usually is more about the functioning. And I know that, I know you know the difference, but I don't think I'm nailing what you're looking for.
You know, I'm sure had all separate meetings with you and the superintendent when you wanted this budget passed with all of its imperfections and challenges. And, you know, we were told, hey, we got this $4.5 million that's lost in this budget, give me to December 1st and I'll be able to produce it. Well, December 1st has come and December 1st is gone and all I see is 2.4. Well, my constituents want to know, where's the $2 million?
Exactly. That is why you guys said if I didn't get it by December 1st, we wanted to outsource this project. Now, remember that? That was how that went.
I just want to make sure that answer is, and there's an accounting of that, and then that question is answered, because it's still very vague to me. And
I don't have the answer. If I'd had the answer, one would have had it by now, but it has been a very arduous process. If you saw what I did just for my department, and there are probably, I think we've got over 16,000 lines, more than that, well over 16,000 lines that I'm reviewing piece by piece. So absolutely, this is a way bigger project than I would have ever thought. So that's why, when you all said you wanted to have somebody, I thought that you were one of the persons that was originally pushing me to get this outsourced. So I definitely, at first, I was not in favor of it, and as I'm looking at how hard this is and how much time consuming this is, I have no problem. I worry that how far I've gotten, how long would it take and how much would it cost to get the rest of the way?
Did we get an estimate of how much it might cost?
Well, my estimate to outsource this, let me see if I can't do something here. When I talked to the man at Clifton Larson Allen, and he's in charge of the outsourcing services. He was enthusiastic about helping, very enthusiastic, but he was also very blunt. His words were, and I'm quoting this, "It sounds like your budget is overinflated and not at all realistic. Those pencils clearly were not sharpened when going through the budget process." Now, what that means is we didn't set limits, right? I mean, that was harsh, wasn't it? So that was harsh to me. And I know I told him about this previously. That was very harsh to me. And that's where we are. I can't, other than what I expect, we are working on right now, it's already halfway through the fiscal year. I am already working on next budget year. So we're trying to work on how to make next budget year. How would I do that? I'm gonna say, each of y'all, you have this much to spend. And if he doesn't, when I do that and I compare it to my revenues, you're gonna have to cut, until we make it in balance. We would never, ever try to present to you an imbalanced budget without there being a plan. You know, let's say it was $1 million, we said, well, we gotta do $1 million out of balance right now, but we're gonna reduce it by the next year. There's always gotta be a plan.
so who addresses individual, you know, when you see, you know, you get the numbers before anybody else and you start seeing schools getting off of trajectories or departments getting off trajectories, who's going and having those discussions with those leaders and saying,
That has to be
where are
me.
you at?
I know Mr. Paletti would think it would be him, but in my opinion, that has to be me, because I understand the numbers probably better, maybe not at this moment, but I need to be the one that understands those numbers. It takes time to understand these numbers, but I would expect you guys to hold me to the fire, and I would expect you to say, don't. And when I was here on July 17th, when that first budget presentation was made, I think it was my first night, was when the first budget presentation was made. I really can't take much credit for how that was prepared, but I will take credit for fixing it. I mean, not credit, but I will take responsibility for fixing it. And I think that's where Mr. Pletty feels the same.
If I could just remind the board,
Yes.
I don't have a problem with what y'all decide to do. I'm the one who said this budget, these numbers are not fitting the way they should fit. There's no way we've spent this much money. And I met individually with the board members saying, this is what's going on. Ms. Riccardi has found 2.4 million already. And I am confident, you folks need to be confident, however method you go about getting it, that by the time we get to the end of the budget cycle, we will be finding the money. But you want to find that sooner. So figure out a way to do it. And I'm okay, because it's not me who has to be comfortable anymore. Pretty soon, you have to take the whole thing over. And so that's what I'm after, is for us to do this. Now, if you consider letting Ms. Riccardi continue on, that would be, say you give her a 60-day extension. That puts us into February, which is actually before the budget ends. That's not my recommendation. I'm just saying, so what if you did that? That gives you plenty of time then to look at what the state does with the budget, to then start building the budget for the following school year. You may decide tonight, let's get somebody to do the work she's doing. You may decide, let's go ahead and spend the money for an audit. Okay, it's not, I don't have anything that I need to back up about or to say that, hey, the money is missing. The money isn't missing, it was the way it was appropriated. You'll see right there in the superintendent's budget, $2-point-something million was planted in my budget, and it's pulled out to use some other places, and Ms. Riccardi has found that. Okay, so there are other areas. We budgeted too much for insurance, for example, and so on and so forth. So that when we had the budget that we presented to you in the summer of a $400,000 surplus, I'm using the wrong word, we've already increased that to 2.4. We're 1.6 million away from where you want to be. So if you want to figure out a way to do it, well, I recommend you do that. But I don't really have a recommendation on the way you should feel comfortable doing it.
Madam Chair. Ms. Riccardi, how long would you say that it would take you to finish this process?
I should have had an answer for that. Let me look. Because it took me about 1 day to do 2 schools. So, and that's within everything else. I mean, if I devoted myself to this solely, I'd guarantee it would be a lot sooner, but between other things. So we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I don't remember that one. I didn't do that one. There's several days that, probably another 15, 20 days. So that's 4 weeks. That's what 15, 20 days is, 4 weeks.
Because reality is that the legislature is going to start their meetings, and there's no telling what they're going to do to us. So we're talking spending 20, 30 grand for something that she might be able to find, and if, you know, I don't know that I don't know what the rest of the board feels, but.
I'm gonna say one other thing, is I have not called in anybody. I believe that, and I'll pick on you, Pepper, if I had called in Dr. Egley, I believe that he might be able to better say, I've been living, because, they're very busy, everybody here, very busy. I believe that if I had called them in and said, I need help, I think that I would have probably gotten a little bit better answers. The 2.4 million that we show right now, it could quite possibly have been at 2.8, 2.9, because they'll look at me and they say, why did I budget this? Or, I can see we're not gonna spend that. We're never going to spend that again, like we did with the TSA number. So I feel that part of the and I've made many mistakes along the way, as in starting something, just like, was it Mr. Edison, wasn't it Thomas Edison, who says, no, I've just learned a bunch of things that didn't work. When I started this process, I learned a bunch of methods that didn't work. Now I believe that as I'm understanding the processes and how these forms are working better, I could probably pull in some assistance, and some of your chief dogs could help this little dog over here do it right, do a little bit better and quicker. So that is my other concern, is that I probably should have consulted my directors and principals sooner.
So by the second meeting in January, you should be.
Oh, yeah, I can come up with
Do you-
Christmas big.
My question is, could you get some help from somebody?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I believe that if I start asking, and I already did, I already got some help from the HR department, the technology department. They've been helping me, throwing some things out there. Oh, we don't need that, or we didn't do that. So just consulting with other people is huge. Now, if you say, I don't believe that there is anyone, that's why inviting a consultant is great, but they would be starting from the same place I was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that is learning the systems. No matter how good you are, I don't think you could walk in and, because I've been copying, I've been looking into, as I'm preparing my next year's budget, I've also been looking at how other other school districts budget. Trying to think what the last one was. They have a beautiful budget manual, and as I'm copying it, I thought, they don't even use the same accounting system that I'm using, so it was a very complicated. So people coming in, no matter how talented they are, will not fully understand us. Apex is, I believe, used by one other school district in the state.
Saracen.
Yeah, so there's 2 school districts in the state that use our computer system. So that already, they're gonna walk in, they're not gonna know that, that's what worries me about pulling somebody in right away.
Is that because we're outdated?
No,
Or we
surprisingly,
have
no,
a-
it's just unusual. I don't think we're outdated, do you?
The company we use has clients all over the United States. We're just we've been with them for many, many years. When some of the other districts in our consortium had a very old system or not much of a system at all. So they moved to Skyward or Focus, which are the other 2 options. And we were already on a functioning, what I thought was a well-functioning system. So we have not tried to switch. That's a very painful process.
It is a painful process, and as I was explaining, some of the capabilities that we haven't been using, including using it's called descriptions or something, where you actually say, Amber's going to spend these, when I spend $50,000, it's going to include $14,000 for rapid fire, it's going to include $16,000 for this. And then, when my boss sees that, he's going to say, why are you spending $14,000 on rapid fire, or whatever it is? And he gets to question it, because it's out there. Just as we all talked, and I think you all like that word, transparency. It makes your budget that much more transparent. So we are looking towards making our budget document, that system, transparent. I believe that what you were doing was transparent on your side, what you were doing was transparent on your side, but we want it to be transparent in the bank. When I see it, and when Mr. Paletti sees it, and then the documents are themselves, the printed documents. So
We had
that's what
bells
we're
and
going.
whistles we weren't using.
We have that, absolutely, absolutely. Well, tell you, we had an IT director, she's teaching me so much just about, thank you very much for the talent she taught me on how to use Excel.
Yeah.
Awesome group down there, awesome group down there.
Well, as I was saying, you should be able to rely on something like one of our other people to help you anytime they possibly do it. I know we have a lot of few people up there that are continually doing many, many different jobs, and I know, but hopefully I think this is really important to the board, and to get as much help from whoever?
I had to ask.
Yeah.
Every one of them would look at me right now and say, all you have to do is ask.
Okay.
Every one of
So
them.
ask them.
We had a directors meeting that was canceled tomorrow, I was gonna ask for help. The leadership meeting, I was gonna ask for help, because I do think I need help to do this right
That's what-
for you.
I would like you to do that.
Yeah, well, and so I'm gonna ask the board to, let's extend it for 30 days. Let's give her to the second meeting in January. She's come along. If we can not spend $15,000 to $30,000 that we don't need to spend, that she can do that internally, I say let's, she's found 2.4 million, so let's give her the shot to finish that 1.6 off and see if she can do it. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but that's what I would like for us to do.
I would just like to make some comments. As Ms. Riccardi, you know that we are tasked with fiscal responsibility of the school district as the school board. The budget's ours. And we have reiterated concerns time and time again, like not knowing where we're at. Are we okay? We are reaching out, because I do believe everybody on this board shares a concern about the budget, the state of the budget and the finances, and so we can ensure that we are doing our duties as school board members. I'm very concerned about you knowing how important this is to the board and missing the deadline. And I am concerned by feel-good narrative, and I need to see the money as expeditiously as possible.
Agreed. Okay. I will say that I understand that the board has been wanting new reports, or to know where you are on a regular basis. Ergo, we have created the new financial reports that we think that are probably a little bit, maybe more than what you wanted, but we're hoping that that helps solve some of your needs as well to us. So at least, I can't tell you where you've been. I'm working on that. That's what the budget is, but I can show you where you are. And I think that is part of resolving each of your concerns. So that has been a key to me, is making sure that you know where you are right now. And you can see, I think Mr. Paletti pointed it out at the last meeting, we're still right where we wanted to be, that we're not consuming up that fund balance. So that's the key, that we're not doing what he kept saying over and over, we're not spending that $6 million deficit, that's not where we're going. He knew that, but the proof is in those monthly reports that we really are not, we're not eating it up. Now we will consume fund balance. There is a reason for that. You had several carryover programs. I want to say the $800,000 HOPE grant was one, that may have been one. There were several items that they were sitting in your fund balance that are designed by plan to be used up this year. Prior year purchase orders or encumbrances, those will be spent this year and use fund balance. They were expected to be spent last year. So you're not going to there will be a use of your fund balance. So I'm not going to find everything.
I think you're doing a good job. And getting what we.
I'm aiming I believe we're aiming in the right direction. And again, I think that, as I said, I have made some, in preparing these reports, I've definitely made some wrong decisions and wrong reports. You can see some of the errors that we've made where it's like, oh, that report will never work. So I finally am comfortable with what I presented you today, and every location will have that. It's not a pretty report, but it does give good information.
You are giving us some very informative information, a lot of numbers, and that's good. We cannot make informed decisions without good, solid numbers. So I do appreciate that, and then the additions that you're going to add to it, I think is just going to help us to make those decisions even more so. So I appreciate that.
All right, well, thank you all very much, and we will continue to try to make this good for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, board. I appreciate you guys doing the extension.
Did we vote on that? Do we have to vote on that?
You don't have to just say it's a
It's
consensus.
just information.
That'd be my fault.
I would say you should make a motion and vote on it, yes.
Okay, do you want to state your recommendation, your motion?
I make a motion that we extend 30 more days for Ms. Riccardi to find the remaining 1.6 million and present to us at the second meeting in January.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? I would like to discuss.
I think that we might want to take the first meeting in February, because that's a lot. If she finds that she needs more time, I think we should allow it. So it would be nice to have it done faster.
Okay.
But from what I hear her say, it may take a little longer. But that's up to you guys.
My 2 cents on it is that I'm still very concerned with the missed deadlines and the feel-good narrative, and that erodes my trust, and it makes me very concerned. So that's the end of my discussion. Is there further board discussion on this?
I've been on that train for quite a while now.
I know you have.
I appreciate some other passengers on the train with me. And I do feel that, since I have been riding that train for quite a while, that she is headed in the right direction with it. So I do understand the concern about the missed deadlines. Honestly, I think she bit off a little more than she could chew immediately, thinking that it was going to be more of a rapid response. And when she took that big bite, she thought, oh boy. So she's going to need a little extra time, and I think she's proving to find it. So that's the only reason that I was requesting the extra 30 days.
So what day, what official day would that make that for a check-in and say, where are you at?
Our second, she will present to us on our second board meeting in January.
What's the date of our January?
We only have
board
one
meeting? There's
board
just
meeting in
one.
January.
Oh, we only have one
First one in
I thought we had
February.
two. I'm sorry.
Right, so it'd probably be best to do for like February 4th.
That would give her-
February the 4th, then.
That better?
It's a few more, that's a few extra days, but
It sounds like she's going to work over Christmas break.
she
Yeah,
is,
That's okay.
And that
so,
one will be LaBelle.
February the 4th. And then at that point, I think if she doesn't, she still has not found it, then we can do
Executive session.
the RFP.
Discuss this.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so is there any further board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Vote passes 3 to 1. Houston voted nay.
Madam Chairman, I'd really like to know why you vote no when we're trying so hard to help get it all together. I just wondered why you would vote.
Why I would vote no is because I've seen this drag out beyond the deadline that was set. And if we need extra help to get this done, so there can be peace of mind, and I can do my job as a board member, as a fiduciary agent, and have confidence in doing so, I think that is a good investment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have further board member discussion, Mr. Superintendent?
Anything else on the
I
agenda?
need to
I don't
let
think
the
we have
board
anything
know
to
I
do.
will be talking with Mrs. Stitt in the morning regarding work toward supplements that were also a concern. And I don't have anything to report on where that stands. That's why I'm meeting with her tomorrow.
You have anything else? Anything else?
No.
Okay. Board member
Are
Baswell?
we under board member business?
We are in board member business.
All right. Supplements. Where are we at with supplements? The list.
I don't know. That's why I'm meeting with Mrs. Stitt. So
Okay.
that's one of the reasons I'm meeting with her tomorrow, is to make sure that the work is continuing on. Okay?
I think, I do not recall, did we put a deadline on when we thought we might have this?
I don't recall either, except that it would be done for the contract settlement, so that you would have it during budget negotiations, or budget considerations. So no, I don't think there was a deadline, other than it would be ongoing. And from time to time, we report. And I'm telling you, I don't have a report, that's why I'm gonna meet with her.
So would it be wise for us to set a deadline for that as well?
The problem with that is, unlike when you talk to Anne Marie about what her job as a finance director, we have to talk to people who are teaching in the classrooms.
Right.
And so we have to pull that time from when they're not otherwise engaged. So it's not as if I can say to a director or to a deputy superintendent, drop all else and work on this. So if you do a deadline, it would be,
Pressure.
you're also bargaining with these people. So if we say, and we want your input by March 1st, remember this is a bargaining situation, the response might be not what you want.
Well, I understand that, I mean, but if we don't set a deadline of some sort, this can drag on for years and years if we don't say something. You know, I think we need to.
I'm not arguing with you, but I'm not saying this is, but that could very well be a strategy that the other side uses. They're not here to speak for themselves, that's what I'm saying, we need to, in any bargaining process, proceed carefully but firmly as we go through, so that, you know, the last thing you want them to say is, well, we're at impasse because of this, we can't come to an agreement. Because then, and they can, because that is a condition of, it's not a condition of employment, it's a compensatory piece. They get paid for it, and they could.
So if they're getting paid for something, they ought to be able to tell us exactly what they're getting paid for. I mean, you know, that, we could really play hardball with that piece of it, because that's part of their job.
Is that what you want to do, is what I'm trying to.
Well, that's what, I
Do we
mean,
wanna talk about what we wanna do
I'm just,
out of executive session?
Let's have this discussion, let me continue to discuss with them before we go down that road, because you also all of a sudden don't want coaches saying, well, good, go find somebody else to do it.
right. Yeah, no, I'm not, I'm just saying it's, I would like to get it done sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And the end result
We've
may
been
not
asking
be
for a
what
while.
you're, the end result may not be exactly what you're after. I'm just throwing all precautions out there.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, we gotta have something, again, for like what we were just discussing. We need some transparency on what everything is and what exactly they're supposed to be doing for what they're being paid for, and everybody needs to know on the up and up what everything really is. And that's the biggest concern, so. We've been dragging this thing along for a while now, so I'd like to try to get it wrapped up. The only other question I had was, I know we had some candidates for principal for the Coolson Middle School. I've had parents asking me what's going on, we were supposed to do a meet and greet, and now can we shed a little light on
We've
this?
had to reschedule the meet and greet twice, because we are now down to one candidate.
Okay,
All right, I have monkeyed around with Coolson Middle School enough that I want to make sure that my next call is the right call. And I don't want the position to go simply to the person who's left standing.
right,
All right, so we are, Mr. Seeley is out this week. We are going through another process to see who we can, who is out there.
yes.
Mr. Summers from Clewiston High School withdrew. Ms. Kelly, Tina Kelly at Clewiston Middle School, her principal certification is not reciprocated by Florida from Texas. Everything else is. So we have to work with her to get a portfolio done
Yes,
for her to be a qualified candidate. I'm not saying the one standing is not a good candidate, they are. The woman who we had from St. Johns County backed out. St. Johns County has absolutely zero turnaround schools to start with.
right,
All right, now, we are searching.
okay. Very good.
When the meet and greet happens, we'll publicize it. But I pulled that because I didn't want parents and community to go to a meet and greet and there's nobody there to meet and greet and to ask questions.
Yeah.
So that's where we are.
Well, and that, you and I had this conversation, and that's why I'm bringing it out, so that everybody can hear it.
That's fine.
You know, and that's exactly what you told me
Yep.
behind closed doors, so I just wanted to make sure that we're getting that out there, because I had
Well, no,
text
it
messages
wasn't
and phone
behind
calls.
closed doors,
and-
it's when you called me, I told you that.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
We're not meeting behind closed doors.
Right, no, yeah,
All right.
correct.
It's not a violation.
So, that was the, I just wanted everybody to hear what our conversation was with that.
To speak to Mr. Basquin's questions, can you speak to the board about the administration consultant we have in Cloiston Middle School now?
Yeah. And that's on a limited time basis. We have Terry Stallman, Dr. Stallman is working at CMS for like 20 days we paid her. What had happened, Dr. Stallman, the reason we know her is, first of all, she's from originally Hendry County. But she had worked at LaBelle Elementary School when it was an F school. And we had a new principal there who had never been through a turnaround process. So she got at that position. When the state team came to Cloiston Middle School the first time, they made a series of recommendations. When the state team came back the second time, none of those recommendations had been implemented. Dr. Mundy read very clearly what their reaction was. So she contacted me, and by using school improvement money, she said, can I get Dr. Stallman to come to Cloiston Middle, because while it's not as in dire a position, because it missed the C by 1 point, we still have 2 people there who I've put in as an interim basis who have no experience dealing with this. So that's why she's at that position for that. It is, when I spoke with Dr. Monday, and of course, she's not able to be here tonight. The PO will come through, the proposal did not come through. Okay, and we looked through this past weekend, policies, and couldn't find exactly where it fit. Is that correct?
I did a search, keyword search in the policies on contracts. I didn't see anything that required every contract to go to the board. It's been past practice that we've had, they do purchase orders instead of the contract. We've been doing that for years, and no auditors ever picked up on that, or we've received any kind of violation.
And she is under the school limit. She's doing staff development for the administration at Cloiston Middle School. Okay, so that's what's going on. And we've had good results with the team that came for a 3rd visit. And we're also seeing improved results in the second tier of baseline data that the students are looking at. We have a long way to go at Cloiston Middle School, but this was a step toward stabilizing the situation that was there. That was one of the reasons we made the change, is because none of the suggestions or recommendations, and when the state has sent a team to your school, you need to listen and do. And it had not been done. That among several other things. So that's why we have made that move. I was there this morning. We still have some work to do, but I'm pleased with the people who are running the show at this point.
I am concerned about, I asked the question when I didn't know there was an administrative consultant in there, and when I asked the question, I didn't have a contract. And did we spend $15,000 or the $22,500?
She is saying it's gonna be, at this point, she has invoiced $15,000. The final bill, it's my understanding, is gonna be $22,500. And her price point per day is under the state requirement, or the state limit. The state limit says 3,000 a day, and she's billing 1,500.
Wow.
It's, if you wanna make money, consult.
Wow.
And now that includes, she pays for everything else out of that. Okay, that's her travel, her per diem and everything else.
Really?
And she does not charge us for that.
Wow.
That's good.
So she has been here working between the point, there was the first visit, the state said it wasn't getting done, and so she's come in between the time that the state indicated that what they wanted done had not been being done, so
Exactly.
we've got her there between there and now. So what about, I've never seen any of this information from the state about Closton Middle School before, so what, how can we determine her effectiveness? Has
Yes.
there been a third round of correspondence from the state?
We can, and I can get that to you. I can get some of it to you right now.
And what funds is the consultant being paid out of?
It's being paid out of school improvement money.
Is that a general fund? Is that federal programs?
That's state money
Category.
that she operates under. That part went to Barbara. Staff development went to Jamie. Because it's staff development that she's paying for, she's the one who got the consultant to come in.
I saw a hand go up from federal programs.
Yes, UNICEF funds is what's used to pay for her, and UNICEF funds can only be used for Closton Middle School at this point.
Because they're the needy school right
Right.
now.
And those
So when I
grant
say,
written
when I
for
say
them.
school improvement money, I'm saying UNICEF.
Mhm.
It's the same thing.
Yes.
I'd like to ask council, I mean, I saw him over there kind of paying attention to
I'm
this
just
whole
thinking about what I'm
discussion.
gonna have for dinner when I get home.
Are you okay with all this discussion?
I don't
of
know enough of the
contracts
details,
and-
but I did have that thought, that I don't know enough about the details here to really tell you what's what.
Well, I will get you
and just-
what you want. Now, what is happening, and I invite any of you to go to Clewiston Middle, there is actual work going on organizing for instruction.
Mhm.
And you can see who has been charged with what and their reports back. It's on display in their work areas, where they meet.
Mhm.
And I will get Dr. Mundy and others, and even Dr. Stallman, to give you a report on the effectiveness of what's going on.
Anything else, Mr. Bassman?
No, ma'am, I just wanted to ask council that if he was okay with all the discussion there with
I will dig
having.
into it a little bit,
So,
Mr. Baskin.
Just wanna make sure we're not, getting in any kind of hot water legally with contracts of things like that, so.
I know that educational consultants are generally treated favorably under the State Board of Education rules. I could share that observation with you,
Okay, well, then, I mean, if
as
she's,
opposed to other kinds of people trying to
she's
do
only
that.
charging us 1,500 and she
Yeah.
could be hitting us for $3,000, I greatly appreciate her.
Limit 3,000, she's hitting us for half of that.
Yeah, that's what I said, if she's,
Plus, she had worked with
That's
LES, and we had good results at LES.
yeah,
That's why Dr. Mundy said, can I bring her to CMS?
absolutely. I'm good, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm done, thank you.
Dr. Burke?
Ms. Nelson? I do. I would first like to thank Mrs. Busen and Mr. Swindle for their efforts in us partnering so strongly with U.S. Sugar.
I'm sorry, what?
I want to thank Mrs. Busen and Mr. Swindle for their efforts, and we're gaining a really strong partnership with U.S.
Oh,
Sugar.
okay.
Presentation that you guys gave at the welding school the other day was phenomenal. I'm still reeling over the whole tractors and the GPS technology. It's incredible. But thank you. I think those laptops are going to be very beneficial. 2, he left, but I wanted to tell Mr. Talata, I watched his daughter do her music chorus performance thing at LES this morning, and it was fantastic. If you get the chance to go watch their pre-K, what is it called? Santa Baby, no. What's the shark song? Baby Shark, oh, it's Santa Shark, I think was the name of it. Oh my gosh, just phenomenal. It's in my head, so anyhow, just kudos to LES and to
Was
Mrs.
this
Rodriguez for
Part of what I
putting on a great show today.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. So I have a couple of matters that I wanted to discuss. I know at the last board meeting, our superintendent talked about having a discussion about changing the times at Wilson Middle School. And I realized that at the point that we are right now, that's not gonna happen.
Right, and
And why is that? You know, I wish we could have had a conversation, because I think that's something that our community and that staff really wants. And what is impeding that from happening?
well, the staff really wants it, and that's why I was at the Coastal Middle School this morning to meet with the staff. My goal was to have it happen at the semester break, but because we've had route changes and because we're short drivers, it can't be pulled off. Plus, we have to look at what's happening at the other schools to fit that in. Because the school time, if you'll recall, we were told that we needed to do this to increase instructional time at Clewiston Middle. The fact of the matter is, instructional time at Clewiston Middle increased by 1 minute per period. And which is marginal, that's nothing. And if you recall, those extended times during the morning and in the afternoon were going to be for additional educational enhancements, which are not happening. So what you have is a problem at Clewiston Middle that needs to be rectified. So I've asked Mrs. Timgren to look into giving me some ideas to bring to the board to figure out how to get this back near to the way it was. Now, when you fix one problem, you're gonna gore someone else's ox, okay? Some of the schools over there have made very adequate use of the extended time, and it's very evident in results at the elementary level. So we're gonna have to figure out how to do that, but the impediment is the fact that we eliminated routes to accommodate this, and we do not have drivers necessary to do this. I think, Mr. McCarthy's still here, I think I'm adequately saying what the impediment is, but I'm gonna have to probably come to the board and say, we need to do this and this to pull it off. But yes, I met with the staff this morning to discuss the situation.
Is this for next school year?
I'm
We
gonna
can't.
aim for, I
Okay.
can't, it doesn't, even Mrs. Timgren says I can't do it.
It'd be too
I
disruptive.
can't do it right
Right.
at this point.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
can I comment on that?
Absolutely.
At our conference in Tampa, at our lunch on Thursday, there was a gentleman that sat down next to Reverend Brown and I on that end of the table that actually, and I don't know if it would be worth Mr. McCarthy's time or not, what they do is staffing for substitute bus drivers. I don't know if that might be something to look into. I did not get a card though. It just hit me that there actually are companies out there, I had no idea, that actually have substitute bus drivers.
Yeah, they do that, and I'm sure some people in the audience are hearing that right now. We need to look very, very, very carefully at that, because there have been some stories that were less than what we want in Hendry County. Leon County, for example, had a nightmare.
Did they?
Yeah, but before we go down that route, we need to make sure that we just don't have tunnel vision.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
not saying just throw anybody that has a CDL in there to drive our kids by any stretch. I have a CDL, I wouldn't wanna drive that bus for anything in the world.
Yeah.
You know, so we need the right people in there for sure.
We need to get Clewiston Middle School back on a schedule. The staff wants the change, the parents want the change. There can be, for instance, because of the lateness, any after-school activities, particularly if we have federal programs, students aren't going because it ends too late. They're getting home too late in the night.
Right.
And so there is no participation in that. And that's something that you use to help with your school grades and with your school climate.
Right.
I've sat here tonight and listened to a narrative about Lewiston Middle School. One, they weren't doing the state recommended actions that they needed to take. And then also, you know, they put us out here and want the schedule change under the guise of more student-teacher contact hours, and we're gonna do, I mean, got up here and specifically spoke to, we're gonna do these before-school programs, and none of it materialized. Where's the accountability for that? Where's the accountability? When do we draw the line and say, there's gonna be accountability if what you say is, you know, for what's happening at that school? Because the impact, what is happening in that community, I'm sure that Mr. Basquin, I'm sure you get some very heart-wrenching, very distraught interactions with parents in the community over the impact that it's happening in that school. And I just wanna know, where's the accountability for that level of massive failure?
The accountability started when I walked in and said to the principal, you're gonna do something else. Okay? Those were among some of the reasons that I used to go in and say, this is not good here. Now, the issue is, we have a person who has a contract that says, you're gonna be paid this much money. So rather than put that person back in a classroom, I used
Is
her.
this something that needs to be an executive session?
Yeah.
You can't do an executive session.
Not for
Okay, I
this.
just wanna make sure if we're talking about,
No, she's a public employee, it's fine. So we're using that person through this contract year to assist in certain ESC elements and certain federal program elements to help shore up some of the work that needs to be done in those departments. But the accountability, I did not wait till the end of the year. I waited till we had a bad report from the state, and I waited till we saw other things going on. And I'll take full responsibility. I'm the one who recommended to the board that that person go in. It didn't work. So I've got to be the one who changes it. And so that's what I did. It may not be to the satisfaction of everybody, but I cannot ignore the fact that that employee has a contract based on my recommendation to the board that says I will be paid, she will be paid that much for this school year.
considering the staggering concerns that I've brought forward and the data that I have asked the district to provide that shows to me that there have been blatant civil rights violations against ESE students and a vulnerable population in this staff, I am flabbergasted to hear someone say that she's working in an ESE, any kind of ESE related job, that in any position that is, I'm so upset at that revelation, I can barely form a
But
sentence
you
right
knew
now.
that revelation, I told you.
You said federal program, she's gonna be with Dr. Mundy,
And
and I said, when this, this is my concern, and.
And I said, it's limited, it is a limited experience in ESE.
Wow, all right,
I believe I did say that.
no.
I did say that, Mrs. Busick. We also looked at scheduling, because that, to us, there was strong evidence to support that there was ability grouping going on, which does no good if you have level 1s and 2s. When they turn to share with their partners, what do they get? So all of that has been changed. there are, with those schedule changes have been made, okay? So there are certain other things that we're looking at, and I'm still have a problem doing everything that we've agreed to. I had earlier sent the board an email concerning one of the things that needs to take place that I'm not able to get to take place at this point, even now, and I'm as frustrated as anyone else is about that.
I have another issue. I want to talk about the RFP for board legal services. Where are we at on that, Ms. Riccardi?
There were 2 applicants for the RFP. Current attorney as well as an attorney from Spellman, I can't think of it.
Sniffen and Spellman?
Sniffen and Spellman. So we had two attorney firms. They were originally, according to the RFP, scheduled to come in on a single date to make presentations. The board meeting did not meet that day, or we didn't do it that day because we didn't have a quorum, or we didn't have enough people, so they said we'd wait. Since then, although Attorney McKinley has been here, the other attorney was not available. The next time I scheduled, and when I've tried to schedule, as well as December. I emailed him in November, and I said, would you please reserve, as our board date, January 14th, I said, would you please reserve January 14th? And he said, I have that date available. That was the last communication I had. I called today, I called the staff, I emailed him today to confirm up the date. I'm sorry, it was yesterday, and he didn't respond back. So I sent another email today, and apparently this time it bounced back saying he was out of the office until the 20th. And so I called and left a message with his administrative assistant. So that's all I know.
Would Board Member McKinley, Attorney McKinley, would you like to share your revelation about Sniffen and Spellman's withdrawal of their RFP?
I'm not sure.
As you communicated it to me?
Revelation would be the right choice of words, but there has been another development. I approached Sniffen and Spellman about looking into the situation at Clewiston Middle School in terms of ESE services and HR. And they considered it and indicated a willingness to do that. But they said that they wouldn't feel comfortable leaving their proposal pending on the RFP. So that if that came to pass and the board chose to use them, then they would withdraw from the RFP. I had intended and planned on sending the board some paperwork on that today, but we had an email breakdown at my law firm and it didn't happen. I learned to my disappointment that that was the situation when I got here this evening. So I guess you'll see the paperwork at the next meeting.
So,
Is it concerning that anybody here that we have 2 people out for an RFP and one of those people are reaching out to the other firm directly?
well,
Was reaching out in a different.
And now, they would rather take this job than come up here and interview to be a board attorney, where we can't have that interview process to ensure that we are getting the best service and the best prices for our constituents.
My understanding on that though is number one, they don't want to conflict. If they're going to represent us, they don't want to throw their name in the hat and try to have like an unfair, okay, well, I'm representing you, give me a job. So it's one or the other, that's my take on it. You know, if they're going to take this job to do that, then they don't want to try to be our attorney for the rest of our.
Why would you reach out to that
So-
person? Why would you reach out to that person?
Oh,
if
I think
you
that
are
question
having-
is, Madam Chairman, I believe that question is directed at me.
Oh, it absolutely, yeah.
Because I thought that they would be the best firm to do the job. And I continue to believe that with all my heart.
So, when I spoke previously about the civil rights violations at Clewiston Middle School, And, you know, you're hearing a section of narrative here.
Mhm.
I think that, you know, you haven't been brought forward this situation, but I feel, you know, I came here tonight prepared to deal with a walk-on recommendation for legal services for this particular situation at Clifton Middle School. And I have background information to put it all in context. To show that, number one, we should have never gotten here. That we're asking them to do, that if the district wanted to fix the problems and not cost taxpayer money, because we already know what an investigation is going to cost. But if we are looking to fix the problems from an impartial, unbiased experts, then we should reach out to the Florida Department of Education and ask them to please come in here, take a look at what's going on, and give us some guidance. Are we probably going to get our hands slapped? Yes, I would bet anything that we would. But that is working with people who are in the same arena. Sniffen and Spellman, I don't know, you know, if you, I went over there and I was impressed, absolutely impressed by their services. But their job is not to be impartial. Their job is to defend school districts. Now, are they going to, and they're getting paid by school districts. They're going to get recommended by a superintendent, ask for the board, and then the board's going to, you know, stroke the check. Are they going to be impartial, or are they going to sweep that under the carpet? When you have a mechanism there in the Florida Department of Education with experts who can come in and help you and give you guidance and oversight and compliance help.
My question would be to you, the law firm that you're looking at, what is their primary, are they primarily defending, or are they primarily suing school districts? Because I don't want to go to that side of the fence either.
I want the Department of Education, because they don't do either or. I'm not interested, and I have expressed that, I am not interested in going down the path with another taxpayer-funded litigator. Because their job is to defend districts and not get to the source of the problem, and that's all I want. Let's get to the source of the problem. Let's fix it for these kids.
Have you talked to the consortium to see what they might recommend? The Heartland Consortium?
We have. I have talked to.
You've talked to the
And we
consortium.
have been in contact with the DOE, and we are in contact with the chancellor for K-12.
Okay.
And working toward this. I've been talking, and Angela's not here tonight, but I have been going through her, talking about where are there any breakdowns? Where is our compliance? Are we doing well?
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying, are we 100% perfect? I don't think any ESC department in the state is.
Right.
But with Dr. Staley, I have been working with that. I have been asking the questions. I have not heard back.
Right.
We have actually done some work with not only my association, the superintendents, but we've been in contact with the School Board Association to see
So,
what we're
Ms.
doing. I'm as frustrated as anyone, because when Dr. Egley and I met with Mrs. Busen about this situation, we agreed that there should be, let's look at it to see, was this a deliberate activity, or was this something that just happened because people were negligent?
Right.
And one of the people involved is no longer employed in the district. She has gone on to another district.
Okay.
So I'm just
That's
as
for personal
frustrated to
reasons.
find somebody as anyone, because I had agreed with Mrs. Busen that we should, and we met in the sub-office, that we should take a definite look at this.
Okay.
And I've been trying to get to this so that we can come to closure on it.
So it sounds to me like we're in agreement that we need to look at this, that nobody's trying to dodge or pass the buck here. So, what we have to do is come to mutual ground and say, who are we going to get to do this for us without putting this on the burden on taxpayers. You know, that burden the taxpayers with more money. And I think ultimately that's what we need to do. So,
I'm gonna give you this packet, and I know that by doing this on this dais, that it becomes a public record. If there's any public records request for these, I ask you to please carefully look at it in the redaction process as to ensure that FERPA is being adhered to. But these are personal experiences. I think probably one of my strongest attributes as a school board member is the fact that I'm a parent.
okay,
And we all know the particulars of, of the exceptionalities in my family. And I have a list here, 10 points of what has happened to me as a parent. My concern is, it can go either way. Is it only me? Because then that's a problem. Is it only my child? That's a problem. Or is it everybody else's kid too?
right.
Which is also a huge problem. And, this needs to be hammered down. And I'm what I'm giving you, this is your 10 bullet points. And this
So
is
this has all of the accusations
absolutely
in here.
everything in it. And then it has the supporting documentation that I've been working on this, that I've been bringing it to light. I have been begging for help.
Okay.
And I'm getting pushed into another corner. Now, in addition to that, and I want you to please keep in mind the conversations that we've just had about the interactions.
Are there student names in here?
Yes. These, I know exactly what's in it and who they went to.
I don't want their names.
It's my child's name, and I give you permission to read it. And as a school board member, you do have permission to read it. I mean, you do have that authority to engage that.
I just want to get legal advice, because I just don't want to get in any.
That's fitting and proper. It would often comes up in the course of a school board member's duties where you're gonna know confidential things, especially about students, that are not subject to public disclosure.
Okay.
So you should not involve yourself in giving these documents out. You can certainly review them and consider them, but Beverly gets stuck with the redaction task.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure before,
So
that's
we're
why
all
I
on the
didn't
same
open
page
it
about
and didn't
that.
look before we,
No,
just.
I know, who has them, and I trust you to use your professional judgment in reviewing those. And I beg of you, please, because I'm going to want to have this conversation when we come back for the next meeting. Also, talking about the what's been done, what have the suggestions have been. I want to also share some correspondence that has gone on with the proposed measures to rectify this. And so those are here for your review. And when we come back to and reconvene in January, I definitely want to discuss this as it pertains to board legal services and as what we're going to be doing to address and directing the superintendent to do to address these situations at Clewiston Middle School, because they're profound.
Okay.
Going back to the investigation at CMS, what, if any, cost is there associated with if you use the DOE people rather than a firm?
The firm's going to charge you.
Right, but with DOE.
Does DOE have a price tag on this?
I would not think so.
But what could they do to us?
Yeah, what can of worms could be opened?
I don't know. According to the people who I employ, or you employ, we are not doing anything incorrectly at CMS. Were there things that happened to a student that I really can't explain why they happened that way or why they were not handled that way? I can't. Okay, that's why when I spoke with Mrs. Busen, I said it might be an issue. It deserves to be looked into. All right? the people who made those things happen are no longer there,
Right.
So it's a
okay?
little bit of a challenge.
Yes,
So that's the
and
first-
some of the things that we
Oh, one of
we
them's on the table.
discovered, some of the things we discovered had been rectified.
So that's the first part of the rectification is some of them are not here, regardless whether they left on their own or other reasonings, but they're
Right.
still no longer employed with the district.
And some of them are.
But some of them are still here, and that's what,
And a matter of concern is all of this came to light when I went to observe one class for 1 hour. And I could sit in that class, and I've been raked over the coals for not being a professional educator or, my formal education's been called on the carpet. But I sat in that classroom for 1 hour and I knew that there was a profound problem. And the questions I started asking and the data I started requesting backed that up. And what's concerning was it was an anomaly within the district. It was something that is happening at Clewiston Middle School. It wasn't just my kid drug into that. It was other kids.
okay.
Now, when you brought that to my attention, I did act on it. I did not dismiss you as an uneducated, unprofessional educator. I took
You'll see the
what-
timeline and the documentations of the
Mrs.
correspondence.
Busen, did I interrupt you while you talked? Please, if you have any sense of decency, afford me the same courtesy.
It's a school board meeting, and I don't want to think you should judge anybody on decency right now. So, please
Well, then I will.
Please wrap up your
I will
comments.
Thank you. If you want to be able to direct the superintendent on what they should do, the board needs to appoint a superintendent. Because I have responded to your requests to the utmost, and I have not interrupted you during your accusations, and yet when someone tries to explain, they get interrupted. I feel horrible about what had happened at Clewiston Middle School. I told you that. I met with you and Dr. Egley to discuss what we could do to improve this. We have met most, if not all, but most of the demands you had laid out. And some of the things that you had said were problematic, we found out that it didn't just happen to one student, it happened to others because we changed information platforms. Okay, but in no situation, in no circumstance did services, we went from what we used to do now to what is our current information process, Mrs. Mathis? We went from Genesis to Focus. Those communications did result in some problems with student records. But no service ever was stopped for those children on their IEPs, even though they had expired.
Okay.
So,
There
again,
were multiple kids in that group?
there was more than one child. Yes, that's what we found out. Because I was also extremely concerned, did this only happen to one child? And we're finding out, according to Dr. Staley, that there were other children who that happened to where they got dropped. It has been rectified. We have agreed to some of the other things that you said to do, and I have agreed to an investigation, okay? Just to see what it's gonna be like. The first run we made at getting somebody in was going to be paid for by my association. It was not exactly what the person had in mind, so they pulled out, all right? They were more of a programmatic overview of what went wrong, which would have been helpful to me, but it's not what the parent may have wanted to have happen. So now we went to another person, and that person also was not appropriate. This third example, because we had in fact said to Mrs. Busey, something will happen Tuesday night, I don't have the recommendation to give you. Therefore, if I don't know it, I can't say it. Now, we will redouble our efforts to go back through DOE to get this, but we have been in contact with FADS, with FSBA, and with Jacob Oliva, who has been contacted regarding this situation.
I would just encourage you to please read the packet and let the correspondence and the public records.
Okay. I mean, I think that's fair to do that, but I think also at the same time, I think we owe it to the taxpayers to not spend money if we
Drag
can
them down
do
into
it.
this again.
Yeah, if we can get DOE involved in it and it not cost the district thousands of dollars
And correct the problem.
and get the
And
problem
correct the
fixed,
problem.
that's the biggest, the biggest thing is let's get whatever is going on. And it sounds like we've got part of it fixed, that if we can finish the rest of it.
We've got to determine where is the fix, what is the problem.
Right, so, I mean, you know, we just have to figure out who the best fit is to tell us what the problem is and where it is and how to fix it. So if DOE can get involved and help us with that, that's great. We take a little smack on the wrist.
But we can
What's
fix the
important is
problem.
identifying and fixing the problems.
That's what he said.
I agree.
And just that's the impartial aspect that they're gonna bring to the situation. That's all I'm asking for, is fair shake. Yeah.
For all students.
For all students. So, is there any further board discussion?
I did have one other question. Actually, I had a more of a statement, I would say, concerning principal. I received text messages from a couple of parents, and I don't know if you're aware, that's why I want to make you aware. Their concern was that maybe some of the people that applied for the principal job at CMS pulled out in fear that you wouldn't allow them to do what they needed to do. I don't know what that means.
Oh, no, I don't know.
But I just wanted to make you aware that that has been
All right.
said.
No.
So maybe contact those folks and assure them that what,
I know I
We need to
contacted
do.
one and said, and he just said, I'd prefer to stay where I am.
okay,
Now, I don't know if I'll have to go back through the list to see who else had applied.
yeah, let's see if that is a, you know, concern of why they pulled out, why they withdrew. So just wanted to bring that up because I did have some text messages saying that, so.
I heard the same
They said
thing.
they're listening, so hello.
I've heard the same thing, Mr. Bassman. Are there any other board member discussion? Okay, so we're not going to convene until 2020. I can't even believe I'm even saying that, it seems so futuristic. But I want to wish everyone a lovely holiday season and a Merry Christmas. And I hope everyone enjoys a very happy and prosperous New Year. Meeting is adjourned.